No nanny. Cleaner gives baby bath in the sink. But when the millionaire dad saw, Sarah Foster never imagined that a simple day of work at the Harrington mansion would change her life forever. The 28-year-old had been working as a cleaner for 3 years in the home of businessman Christopher Harrington, one of the wealthiest men in New York City, and she had always performed her duties with quiet dedication, remaining invisible like any good employee. It was when she heard the desperate cry coming from the room of little Leo, just a year and a half old, that she realized something was terribly wrong. The nanny Brenda had simply vanished, leaving only a note on the dresser saying she wouldn't be coming back, with no explanation or warning. The child's cries echoed through the empty mansion's hallways, and Sarah ran upstairs, finding the boy in a deplorable state. His little clothes were soaked and dirty, and from the strong smell it was clear he had been like that for hours. His face, red from crying, broke the young woman's heart. "Oh my God, how could they leave you like this, sweetie?" she murmured, picking Leo up carefully. The child immediately calmed upon feeling the affection in her arms, his sobs gradually subsiding. Sarah knew she had to act fast. The bathroom in the room only had a shower, unsuitable for such a small child, and the main bathtub was on the employer's floor, where she had strict orders not to enter. Without hesitation, she took Leo down to the kitchen. There, in the large stainless steel sink, she improvised a warm bath. With gentle movements and the experience of someone who had cared for children before, she tested the water temperature with her elbow, remembering the lessons she'd learned caring for neighbors' children in her childhood, in the lower-income neighborhood. "Look how nice, Leo. Let's get all this dirt off," she hummed softly, while delicately removing the child's dirty clothes. The baby began babbling happily, playing with the warm water running over his tiny hands. Sarah smiled, feeling a maternal tenderness she had long tried to suppress. She had lost custody of her own daughter, Lily, 2 years prior, when she found herself alone and without financial means after the girl's father disappeared. While carefully soaping the boy's blonde hair, she softly sang a song she used to sing to Lily. Leo giggled, clapping his hands in the water, completely relaxed for the first time in hours. It was at that exact moment that Christopher Harrington walked through the kitchen door. The 35-year-old businessman had returned unexpectedly from a business trip to Washington, D.C., a day earlier than planned. His meetings with the federal government had been cancelled due to a civil servants' strike, and he had decided to come home early to spend time with his son. Christopher stopped at the kitchen entrance, completely paralyzed by the scene before his eyes. His cleaner, uniformed in the beige dress all the female staff wore, was bathing his son in the sink, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. What is the meaning of this? Christopher's voice echoed through the kitchen, making Sarah jump. She turned quickly, her brown eyes wide with fright, almost dropping Leo in the sink. Her hands trembled as she held the child firmly against her chest. "Mr. Christopher, I can explain," she stammered, trying to find the words. "The nanny, she left. There was a note. Leo was, You are bathing my son in the kitchen sink," Christopher interrupted, his voice laden with indignation. "Who gave you permission for this?" Leo, frightened by his father's loud tone, began to cry again, clinging to Sarah's wet uniform. She automatically rocked him in her arms, murmuring words of comfort, and the child immediately calmed down. Christopher observed the scene with a confused expression. His son, who usually cried for hours when upset, had calmed instantly in the arms of the cleaning lady. Something about that deeply bothered him, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly what. "Sir, please, let me explain," Sarah said, her voice firmer now. "When I arrived this morning for work, I found Leo crying for hours. The nanny Brenda had left. She only left a note saying she wouldn't be coming back." "That's impossible. Brenda was here yesterday when I left for my trip." "I know, sir, but she's gone. Leo had a dirty diaper for a long time with a rash and was crying desperately. I couldn't leave a child suffering like that." Christopher picked up the note Sarah pointed to on the counter. Indeed, it was Brenda's handwriting. "I can no longer continue in this job. I quit. Brenda." No explanation, no notice, nothing. Even so, you had no right to, began Christopher, but was interrupted by the arrival of Mrs. Martha, the housekeeper. The 55-year-old woman, who had worked for the family for over 10 years, stopped at the kitchen door with a horrified expression on her face. Her grey hair was pulled back in an impeccable bun, and her navy blue dress didn't have a single wrinkle. "Mr. Christopher, I'm so glad you're back," she exclaimed, clearly relieved. "I tried to control the situation, but this girl simply doesn't listen to orders." Sarah felt her blood boil. Mrs. Martha had always treated her with contempt, as if she were less important than the other staff. The housekeeper was jealous of the natural closeness Sarah developed with Leo, especially because Martha herself had never managed to form an emotional bond with the child. "Control what situation, Martha?" asked Christopher, running his hand through his dark hair in a gesture of frustration. "Sir, I told her not to meddle where she wasn't called. I said the new nanny would arrive soon and that she should just continue with her cleaning tasks, but she insisted on picking up the boy." "The new nanny?" Sarah turned to the housekeeper, surprised. "Mrs. Martha, there was no new nanny scheduled for today. Leo had been alone for hours." "It's not your business to know the household arrangements," retorted Martha, raising her chin arrogantly. "You're just the cleaning lady. Your job is to clean, not to look after a child." Leo, who had remained quiet in Sarah's arms, began to squirm, reaching his little arms toward her whenever Christopher or Martha approached. The child's behavior was undeniable. He felt safe and comfortable only with the cleaning lady. Christopher observed this with growing discomfort. His son, whom he barely knew due to long work hours, was clearly more at ease with the employee than with him. The reality hurt more than he wanted to admit. "Martha, you said a new nanny was coming. Where is she?" asked Christopher, trying to keep his voice controlled. The housekeeper hesitated for a moment, her eyes shifting slightly. "Well, sir, I called the agency as soon as I found out Brenda had left. They said they would send someone, but perhaps there was some delay." "You called exactly when?" insisted Christopher. "This morning, of course." Sarah shook her head, unable to stay quiet. "Mrs. Martha, when I arrived at 7 this morning, you weren't even here yet, and I found Leo in that state. If you had really called the agency, you wouldn't have left a child suffering like that." "How dare you contradict me?" Martha raised her voice, her face turning red with indignation. "Mr. Christopher, see how this woman speaks to me. This is why I say she doesn't know her place." "My place is to take care of what needs caring for," Sarah answered, her voice trembling with emotion. "And a crying, dirty child needed urgent care. I wasn't going to stand by waiting for a nanny who might not even exist while Leo was suffering." Christopher was beginning to realize there was more to this story than met the eye. Mrs. Martha had always been an exemplary employee, efficient and dedicated, but something about her attitude today didn't make sense, and Leo's reaction to Sarah's presence was undeniable. "Martha, give me the agency's phone number so I can call and confirm myself," said Christopher, extending his hand. The housekeeper hesitated again, her fingers nervously playing with her apron. "Sir, I don't have the number here with me right now. It's upstairs, in my room." "Then go get it." As Martha left the kitchen with hurried steps, Christopher turned to Sarah. The young woman continued to hold Leo, who was now calmly playing with the buttons on her uniform. "Sarah, you need to understand this can't happen," he said, trying to maintain a professional tone. "You were hired to clean the house, not to take care of my son. I understand, Mr. Christopher, but do you understand that I couldn't leave a child suffering?" She looked directly at him, her eyes shining with held-back tears. "If it were you, if you found a child crying and dirty, what would you do? Would you turn your back because it's not your official job?" The question hit Christopher squarely. He knew she was right, but admitting it would mean acknowledging he had failed as a father, that he didn't know well enough the people caring for his son. "That's different," he murmured, but without conviction. "Is it different because I'm just the cleaner?" Sarah asked quietly. "Because I don't have a degree or specific training? Mr. Christopher, caring for a child doesn't need a degree. It needs love, attention, being present." Her words echoed in the silence of the luxurious kitchen. Christopher watched how Leo snuggled in Sarah's lap, completely relaxed, and felt a pang of something he couldn't immediately identify. Was it envy? Admiration? Or perhaps the painful realization that he was being a stranger in his own son's life? "Do you have children?" he asked, not knowing why the question left his mouth. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, pain crossing her face like a shadow. "I had a daughter," she said quietly. "Lily. She's 4 now." "Had. I lost custody of her 2 years ago. When her father disappeared, I was left alone, without a steady job, living in a rented room in a lower-income neighborhood. Child Protective Services decided I wasn't in a position to raise a child properly." Christopher felt a lump in his throat. He had assumed Sarah was just another employee without major responsibilities or problems. He had never really talked to her beyond basic good morning and good afternoon greetings. "And your daughter, where is she now?" "She was adopted by a family in Boston, a good family with better means than I could offer." Sarah swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "I accept letters once a month, through the social worker. Lily is fine, happy, studying. It's what I wanted for her." Leo chose that moment to babble a quiet mama, looking at Sarah. The words struck both adults like lightning. Sarah immediately tried to correct him. "No, Leo, I'm not your mama. Your mama is in heaven, remember?" she said gently, running her hand through the boy's damp hair. Christopher looked away. His wife, Olivia, had passed away giving birth to Leo. The boy had never met his biological mother, and the succession of nannies never lasted long enough to form real bonds. Perhaps that was why Leo had become so attached to Sarah, who showed the maternal affection he so desperately needed. Mrs. Martha returned to the kitchen, interrupting the tense moment. She came with a paper in her hand, but her expression was even more nervous than before. "Mr. Christopher, I called the agency and there was a misunderstanding," she said quickly. "The nanny they were sending wouldn't arrive until tomorrow. I thought it was today." "So Leo was alone all morning because you made a wrong assumption?" Christopher asked, his voice carrying a growing irritation. "Sir, I didn't know Brenda had left until I arrived here at 9. Martha defended herself. "I thought she was still watching the boy." "Brenda left last night," Sarah interjected softly. "I saw her leaving when I was on my way home. She was carrying a suitcase." Everyone turned to her. Christopher felt the anger rising in his chest. "You saw the nanny leaving last night and didn't say anything?" "Sir, I thought she was going away for the weekend or something. It's not my job to monitor other staff," Sarah explained. "Besides, I've never felt I could talk to you about these things. Our relationship has always been strictly professional." It was true. Christopher realized that in 3 years he had never really spoken to Sarah beyond basic greetings. She was efficient, punctual, discreet, but he treated her like part of the house's furniture. "Mrs. Martha, why didn't you check if Brenda was actually here this morning before you left?" he asked the housekeeper. Well, I had other commitments, sir. I went to do the household shopping, as I always do on Mondays," she replied, but her voice sounded evasive. Sarah shook her head slightly but remained quiet. She knew Mrs. Martha had actually gone to meet her friends at the beauty salon, as she did every Monday morning, but she wasn't going to be the one to expose that. Leo began to yawn in Sarah's arms, clearly tired after all the morning's commotion. She automatically began to rock him gently, humming a lullaby softly. "Rock-a-bye, baby, in the treetop." Her gentle voice echoed through the kitchen. Christopher watched, fascinated, as his son completely relaxed, his little eyes gradually closing. Within minutes, Leo was fast asleep in Sarah's arms. "How do you do that?" he asked without thinking. "Do what, sir?" "He never falls asleep that easily. It usually takes hours, even with the nannies." Sarah shrugged. "Every child needs to feel safe to sleep. When they sense we're truly present, that we're not going to leave, they relax." The simplicity of the answer hit Christopher like a punch in the stomach. When was the last time he had truly been present for Leo? When had he sung to him, or simply stayed there until he fell asleep? "Mr. Christopher," Mrs. Martha interrupted, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation, "I think it's best we take the boy to his room and wait for the new nanny to arrive tomorrow. I can look after him for the rest of the day." Do you know how to care for children, Martha? Christopher asked, realizing he had never really thought about it before. The housekeeper hesitated. Well, I can learn. It's just a matter of organization, isn't it? Sarah bit her lip to keep from commenting. Caring for children wasn't a matter of organization. It was a matter of love, patience, and maternal instinct. But it wasn't her place to correct the housekeeper in front of her employer. Perhaps it's better if I take Leo to his room, she said quietly. He's sleeping soundly. I don't want to wake him. She began to move toward the stairs, but Christopher stopped her. Wait. We're not finished talking yet. Sarah turned, Leo still sleeping soundly in her arms. Sir, I want to understand better what happened here today, and I want to know why my son seems so attached to you. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Mrs. Martha coughed uncomfortably. Mr. Christopher, if I may, I think you're giving this too much importance. Children get attached to anyone who gives them momentary attention. It doesn't mean anything special. Then why has he never reacted this way with the nannies? Christopher asked, looking directly at the housekeeper. Well, sir, the nannies are professionals. They maintain a proper distance. They don't go around spoiling the children like... She stopped, realizing she was entering dangerous territory. Like what, Martha? Finish the thought. Like people without proper training do, she finished, casting a disapproving look at Sarah. Christopher felt something deeply unsettling in Martha's words. There was a prejudice there, an arrogance he had never noticed before. Sarah, you said you've cared for children before. Where? In the community where I live, sir. I've always helped the neighbors with their young children, and of course I took care of my Lily until I lost her. Her voice faltered a little at the end. Did you study anything related to childcare? Sarah hesitated. It was a question that made her uncomfortable because it exposed dreams she had been forced to abandon. I started a degree in education, she said quietly. I did 2 years at the state university, but when I got pregnant with Lily and her father disappeared, I had to put my studies on hold to work. Christopher fell silent, processing the information. Sarah wasn't just an unqualified cleaner, as he had assumed. She was a woman who had been forced to abandon her dreams to survive. Why did you never mention this? Mr. Christopher, I don't think my personal history is relevant to my work here. You hired me to clean, and that's what I do. But you clearly have knowledge and skill with children. Mrs. Martha coughed loudly again. Sir, if I may, I think we are straying from the main issue. The fact is that this young woman overstepped her professional boundaries. However well-intentioned she may have been, she did not have authorization to bathe Leo. And the alternative was to leave a child suffering, Christopher asked, his irritation with the housekeeper growing. The alternative was to fine me. I'm in charge of the house in your absence. But you weren't here when Sarah arrived, and apparently you also didn't check if Leo was being properly cared for before leaving for your appointments. Martha paled. It was clear Christopher was beginning to question her version of events. Sir, I have always been a dedicated and responsible employee, she said, raising her voice slightly. In 10 years working for your family, there has never been any complaint about my performance. And I appreciate that, Martha. But today there was a failure, and it was Sarah who had to deal with the situation. Leo chose that moment to stir in Sarah's arms, murmuring something in his sleep. She automatically adjusted her hold, keeping him comfortable, and he immediately settled. Christopher watched her instinctive movement and realized something that troubled him deeply. He himself wouldn't know how to hold his own son so naturally and comfortably. Sarah, please take Leo to his room, then come back here. We need to talk more. She nodded and went up the stairs, walking slowly so as not to wake the child. Her gentle, careful presence was evident in every movement. When they were alone, Christopher turned to Mrs. Martha. Martha, I want the truth. What really happened this morning? The housekeeper stiffened. Sir, I've already explained. There was a misunderstanding with the agency, and I didn't know that Brenda had left. You said you called the agency this morning, but then you changed your story, saying the nanny would only arrive tomorrow. Which of the two versions is true? Martha shifted uncomfortably. Sir, in the confusion of the moment, I may have misspoken. The fact is, I tried to handle the situation as best I could. And leaving a child alone is part of the best you could do? Leo wasn't alone. I was in the house. But you said you went out shopping. I stepped out quickly, thinking Brenda was still here. Christopher shook his head. The contradictions in Martha's story were becoming obvious, and he was beginning to realize he might never have paid enough attention to what really happened in his own home. Sarah came down the stairs a few minutes later, having put Leo in his crib. She had taken the opportunity to quickly tidy the room, which was messy and smelled of dirty diapers. "He's sleeping soundly," she reported. "He must be exhausted. Children get very tired when they spend a long time crying. Sarah, sit down." Christopher pointed to one of the chairs around the kitchen table. "I want to ask a few questions." She sat on the edge of the chair, visibly nervous. Mrs. Martha remained standing, arms crossed, clearly bothered by the situation. "How long have you noticed that Leo has problems with the nannies?" Sarah hesitated, glancing quickly at Martha before answering. "Sir, I don't think it's appropriate to comment on other employees. I'm asking for your opinion. As someone who is in this house every day, you must have noticed things." "Well," she took a deep breath, "the nannies never stay very long. In the last 2 years there have been at least 8. And Leo always gets agitated when they're here." "Agitated how?" "He cries a lot, doesn't eat properly, doesn't sleep well. Whenever I can, when I'm cleaning near his room, I hear him crying for long periods." Christopher felt his chest tighten. "And you never thought to tell me this?" "Mr. Christopher, I'm just the cleaner. I didn't think it was my place to interfere or question the nannies. Besides," she stopped, looking at Martha again. "Besides what?" "Besides, once I tried to mention to Mrs. Martha that Leo seemed to be suffering, and she told me not to stick my nose where it didn't belong." Martha exploded. "That's a lie. I never said that. Mrs. Martha, it was last month when the nanny Deborah was here. Leo cried for 3 hours straight one afternoon, and I asked if everything was okay. You told me that professional nannies know what they're doing and that I should mind my own business." Christopher looked at Martha, who was growing visibly more nervous. "Is that true, Martha?" "Sir, I may have been a little direct, but it's important to keep the household hierarchy clear. I can't have employees questioning each other." "But if a child is clearly suffering, shouldn't that be more important than hierarchy?" Martha didn't answer, but her face was red with embarrassment and irritation. "Sarah, these nannies who don't stay long, do you know why they leave? Some complain that Leo is too difficult, that he cries too much. Others say they don't feel comfortable working here. One of them told me she felt watched all the time." "Watched by whom?" Sarah looked at Martha again, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, I'd rather not specify. I don't want to create more problems." "You won't create problems. I want to know the truth about what happens in my home." Some nannies commented that they felt constantly judged, that anything they did was criticized or corrected. This created a tense environment, and children feel those tensions. Christopher turned to the housekeeper. "Martha?" "Sir, it is my responsibility to ensure the standards of the house are maintained. If I notice something is not being done correctly, it is my duty to intervene." "And what exactly do you consider not being done correctly?" "Well, small things. The way of feeding, changing diapers, putting them to sleep. Each nanny has different methods, and I need to ensure consistency." Sarah shook her head slightly, but remained quiet. She knew Martha was much more than instructive. She was controlling and critical to the extreme, making it impossible for the nannies to develop their own methods or feel confident in their work. "Sarah, when you take care of Leo, and I imagine this has happened other times besides today, how does he react?" "Sir, I've only cared for him in emergencies like today, but he stays calm. He likes to hear stories, soft music. He is a sweet and intelligent child. He just needs to feel safe and loved." "And the nannies don't do that?" "Mr. Christopher, I think many of them see the work only as professional. They complete the tasks, feeding, changing, putting to sleep, but they don't create an emotional bond. And Leo feels that." "How do you know he feels that?" "Because young children are very sensitive to what adults are feeling. If someone is just fulfilling an obligation, without real affection, they notice, and they become insecure, fussy, difficult. Christopher reflected on this. Did he himself fit that description? Was it possible that his own son didn't feel loved and safe even with him? "Mr. Christopher," Mrs. Martha interrupted, her voice tense, "I think we are giving too much credit to this young lady's amateur theories. Childcare is a science. There are correct and professional methods for everything." And yet, none of those professionals managed to make Leo stay calm and happy like Sarah did today, Christopher replied dryly. It was just a coincidence. The child was tired. "Martha, do you have children?" The question took the housekeeper by surprise. No, sir. I never married." "And you, Sarah?" "I had Lily, sir. And even though I lost custody of her, I am still a mother. The maternal instinct doesn't disappear." The difference was there, clear and undeniable. Martha, for all her efficiency and organization, had never experienced the maternal bond. Sarah, on the other hand, had been a mother and carried with her all the intuition and sensitivity that develops. "Sir," Sarah said softly, "may I ask a question?" "Of course." "When was the last time you spent time alone with Leo? Without nannies, without other people, just the two of you?" The question hit Christopher like a slap. He tried to remember but couldn't think of a single occasion in the last few months when he had been alone with his son for more than a few minutes. "I work a lot. I have responsibilities." "I know, sir. I'm not judging." "I'm not. I just think maybe Leo misses his father too." "What do you mean?" "Children need to feel important to their parents. Even little ones like Leo. They feel when they are a priority, or when they are just another responsibility to be delegated." The silence that followed was heavy. Christopher knew she was right, but admitting it meant facing the fact that he had been an absent father, compensating for his lack of presence with staff and money. "Mr. Christopher," Mrs. Martha said, trying to regain control of the situation, "I think we have discussed this subject sufficiently. The important thing now is to resolve the issue of the new nanny and clarify the professional boundaries of each employee." "Professional boundaries, Martha?" Christopher turned to her. "Are you saying that caring for a child in distress is beyond someone's professional limits?" "I'm saying that each employee has their specific responsibilities. When those responsibilities get mixed up, the organization of the house is compromised. And the organization of the house is more important than my son's well-being. That's not what I'm saying, sir." "Then what exactly are you saying?" Martha realized she was digging a deeper and deeper hole. Her attempt to maintain control and authority was actually exposing her lack of sensitivity and misplaced priorities. "I'm saying we need clear rules to avoid situations like today's," she replied, trying to sound reasonable. "Today's situation was someone showing more care and competence with my son than any professional I've hired," Christopher said, his voice laden with a cold anger. "If that's a problem for you, Martha, then perhaps we need to reevaluate some things." The implicit threat in his words made the housekeeper pale. In 10 years of work, she had never been questioned like this, never felt her position threatened. "Mr. Christopher, I apologize if I expressed myself poorly. Of course, Leo's well-being is the priority. I just wanted to maintain order. The order you maintain includes leaving a child alone and dirty for hours. That was an isolated misunderstanding. It was negligence, Martha. And if Sarah hadn't been here today, Leo would have suffered even more." Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She didn't want to be the center of a discussion that could cost the housekeeper her job, but she also couldn't deny the facts. "Mr. Christopher," she said softly, "perhaps we can resolve this more amicably. Mrs. Martha has always been a dedicated employee, and today was just an atypical day." Christopher looked at her, surprised by her generosity. Even after being treated with contempt and prejudice, Sarah was trying to protect her co-worker. "Sarah, you don't need to defend anyone. I just want to understand what really happens in this house when I'm not here." "Sir, what happens is that we all do the best we can. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we get it right. The important thing is that we learn from the mistakes." Sarah's simple wisdom and maturity contrasted drastically with Martha's defensiveness and wounded pride. Christopher was beginning to realize he had misjudged his employees, assuming that formal education and seniority were the only indicators of competence and character. A soft cry came from Leo's room, interrupting the tense conversation. Everyone looked at the ceiling, and Sarah automatically stood up. "May I go see if he's okay?" Christopher nodded, and she quickly went up the stairs. Within seconds, the crying stopped, replaced by happy babbling. "How does she do that?" Christopher murmured, more to himself than to Martha. "Sir, don't be impressed by cheap tricks," Martha said, desperately trying to regain some control of the situation. "Anyone can calm a child for a few minutes." "Anyone? Then why can't the professional nannies?" "Because they follow scientific methods. They don't just do what the child wants." "And you think letting a child cry desperately is part of those scientific methods?" Martha didn't answer. It was becoming clear that every argument she presented only dug her situation deeper. Sarah came down the stairs carrying Leo, who was smiling and babbling happily. The child looked at his father and stretched out his little arms, surprising everyone. "Dada," Leo said clearly, his first words directed to his father. Christopher felt tears well up in his eyes. His son had said Dada for the first time, and he had almost missed that moment by arguing about protocols and hierarchies. "Hi, my son," he said, picking up Leo in his arms. The child nestled against his father's chest, still holding on to one of Sarah's little fingers, as if wanting to maintain a connection with both. It was as if Leo was trying to unite the two people, who at that moment represented safety and love for him. "He's hungry," Sarah observed. "It's already past his lunchtime. You know his meal times. Sir, when I'm cleaning, I always hear when he eats or when he cries from hunger. After 3 years here, I ended up learning the routine." "And where is his food?" Mrs. Martha shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, the baby food ran out yesterday, and I haven't been to the market to restock yet." "What do you mean it ran out? Leo needs to eat." "I was going to buy it this morning, but with all the commotion." "What commotion, Martha? You said you only found out about Brenda when you arrived at 9, and that you went out shopping in the morning. Didn't you have time to buy food for a child?" The housekeeper realized her conflicting versions were piling up, creating an increasingly indefensible scenario. Perhaps I organized myself poorly today." Sarah cleared her throat softly. "Mr. Christopher, I brought a little homemade baby food today. I make it for the neighbors' children, and always bring an extra jar in case Leo needs it." "You brought food for him?" "It's just a vegetable puree with shredded chicken, nothing too elaborate, but it's nutritious and homemade." Christopher looked at her with an indescribable expression. Sarah had not only handled the emergency bath and calmed Leo, but had also thought to bring food in case he needed it. Meanwhile, the official housekeeper of the home had let the child's food run out. "Where is this baby food?" "In my bag, sir. It's in a thermal jar. It's still fresh." "Martha, did you know Sarah does this?" The housekeeper shook her head, clearly embarrassed. "No, sir. She never told me." "Because no one ever asked," Sarah said quietly. "I just wanted to make sure Leo wouldn't go hungry if something happened. Like today." "Like today?" Christopher felt a mix of gratitude and shame. Gratitude for having someone so caring looking out for his son, and shame that it had been necessary for the cleaning lady to take on responsibilities that should have belonged to other staff, or himself. "Sarah, warm up the baby food, please. I want to see Leo eat." She nodded and went to the stove, taking a small thermal jar from her simple bag. As she warmed the food, she hummed softly, and Leo drooled with joy in his father's lap, clearly recognizing the routine. "Has he eaten this baby food before?" Christopher asked. "A few times, sir, when the nannies left early or when he was very fussy and hungry." "And you never thought to tell me?" "Sir, I didn't want to seem like I was interfering or criticizing the nannies. I only did it when it was really necessary." Christopher watched the scene, Sarah testing the temperature of the baby food on the back of her hand, preparing a small spoon, arranging everything with precise and careful movements. It was evident she had done this many times. "How many times have you fed my son, Sarah?" She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "Sir, I don't want to cause problems for anyone." "How many times?" maybe 10 or 15 times in the last few months, always in emergency situations. Emergencies like what? When the nannies were late, or when they left early without notice, or when Leo was very fussy and wouldn't eat with them. Christopher felt the anger rise again, but this time directed at himself. How had he allowed this situation to reach this point? How had he not noticed that his son was being neglected by people he specifically paid to care for him? And did Mrs. Martha know about this? Sarah looked at the housekeeper, who was growing paler by the minute. Sometimes she knew, other times she didn't. Martha, sir, there were some occasions when I allowed her to help, when the situation was difficult, the housekeeper admitted reluctantly. So you knew the nannies weren't doing a good job? It's not that they weren't doing a good job, sir. It's that some situations are complicated. What situations? Martha looked at Sarah, who kept her focus on the baby food, clearly not wanting to be put in the middle of the discussion. Sir, some nannies had stricter methods. They followed very rigid schedules, and if Leo didn't want to eat at the right time, they simply waited for the next meal. And you thought that was correct? I thought it was discipline. Discipline is letting a child go hungry. No, sir, but... There is no but, Martha. A 1.5-year-old child doesn't understand scheduled discipline. He understands hunger, thirst, sleep, discomfort, and he needs adults to respond to those needs. Sarah approached with the warm baby food. It's at the right temperature, sir. May I feed Leo? No, I will feed my son. The statement surprised everyone, including Christopher himself. When was the last time he had fed Leo, or given him a bath, or put him to sleep? Sir, are you sure? Sarah asked gently. Sometimes it's a bit tricky at first. I need to learn. Teach me. The simplicity of the request touched Sarah deeply. Here was a powerful and successful man, humbly asking to learn how to care for his own son. Of course, sir. Let's sit over there at the table. It's more comfortable. They settled in, Christopher holding Leo on his lap, Sarah beside him with the baby food and spoon. First, you need to make him comfortable. Leo likes to see the food first, to smell it. Let him touch it if he wants. Christopher offered the spoon with a little food for Leo to smell. The child immediately opened his little mouth, eager. Now slowly, if he closes his mouth, don't force it. Wait for him to open it again. How did you learn all this? With Lily, sir. And later, by watching the children in the neighborhood. Every child is different, but they all need to feel safe at mealtime. Leo ate with appetite, babbling happily between spoonfuls. Christopher watched every reaction of his son, every expression, every sound. It was as if he were discovering a completely new person. He's a happy child, Christopher commented, surprised. Very happy, sir. Leo is sweet, curious, intelligent. He just needs to feel loved and secure. And he didn't feel that way before? Sarah chose her words carefully. Sir, I think Leo felt he was more of an obligation than a joy to the people around him. Children sense when adults are just performing duties. And with me? How does he feel with me? The question was loaded with vulnerability, and Sarah realized Christopher was genuinely concerned about the answer. Mr. Harrington, Leo adores his father. Whenever you come home, even if briefly, his little face lights up. He waits by the bedroom window to hear the car. The problem is that the time you spend together is always very rushed, very tense. Tense how? You always seem worried, in a hurry. Leo senses that. He would like to play, to talk, but you always seem to have your mind elsewhere. Christopher stopped with the spoon in the air, processing Sarah's words. It was true. Even in the few moments he spent with Leo, his mind was always on business, on company problems, on the next meetings. I didn't know he noticed that. Children notice everything, sir. They are like little emotional sponges. They absorb everything the adults are feeling. Leo chose that moment to take his father's hand and kiss it, smearing it with baby food. Instead of getting annoyed, Christopher smiled, genuinely touched by the spontaneous gesture of affection. He's never done that before, he murmured. Because there's never been a calm and present moment like this, Sarah observed. Leo is feeling like he has your full attention now. Sarah, can I ask you something personal? Of course, sir. How did you lose custody of your daughter? I mean, It's obvious you know how to care for children better than anyone who's ever been through here." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, the pain still fresh even after 2 years. "When Lily's father disappeared, I was left without a steady job. I was 5 months pregnant, and no place would hire me. After she was born, I did odd jobs, cleaning, babysitting, anything to survive. And we lived in a rented room in a lower-income neighborhood. There wasn't much space, not much comfort, but it was clean, and Lily was well cared for, fed, loved. But for Child Protective Services, that wasn't enough." "What happened exactly?" "A neighbor filed a complaint, said I left Lily alone to go to work. It wasn't true. I always took her with me or left her with Mrs. Gable, a lady in the neighborhood who took care of several children. But when the social workers went to check, they saw the humble conditions we lived in and decided I didn't have the means to raise a child. Didn't they consider the love and care you gave? Love doesn't pay the rent, Mr. Christopher. Love doesn't guarantee private school health insurance opportunities. At least that's what they told me." Christopher felt a lump in his throat. Here was a woman who clearly loved and knew how to care for children, but had lost her own daughter for not having enough money, while he paid fortunes to nannies who couldn't even make his son smile. "And you accept this decision?" "I have to accept it, sir. Lily is with a good family in Boston. They send photos through the social worker. She's growing up well, studying, happy. That's what I wanted for her, even if it wasn't with me." "But you're still her mother." "Biologically, yes. Legally, no. And maybe it's better this way. They can give her everything I never could." "Except a real mother's love." Sarah smiled sadly. "I give that love even from a distance, sir. Every night, before sleeping, I think of her, send good energy, give thanks that she's well. It's what I can do." Leo, who had finished eating, stretched his dirty little hand toward Sarah's face as if wanting to console her. She smiled, delicately wiping his tiny fingers with a napkin. "And is that why you dedicate yourself so much to Leo?" Christopher asked softly. "Not just because of that, sir. Leo is a special, affectionate child. He deserves all the love in the world. But, yes, taking care of him eases the longing for Lily a little." "Martha," Christopher turned to the housekeeper, who had remained quiet throughout the conversation. "Did you know about this story?" "No, sir. We've never talked about personal matters." "Why not?" "Because I didn't think it was necessary. Employees' personal matters don't interfere with work." "They don't interfere?" Christopher looked at her incredulously. "Martha, knowing the people who work in our home, understanding their motivations, their qualities, is fundamental. How can you manage people you don't know?" "Sir, I've always focused on efficiency and organization. And where has that gotten us? To a home where my son is neglected, where someone with knowledge and dedication is underutilized, where problems are hidden instead of solved." Mrs. Martha realized her management philosophy was being completely questioned, and she had no solid arguments to defend herself. "Mr. Christopher," Sarah interrupted gently, "perhaps we can focus on what is best for Leo from now on, instead of arguing about what has already passed." "You're right. And what do you think would be best for Leo?" "Sir, that's not for me to decide. I'm just an employee." "Sarah, stop that. You clearly care about Leo and understand what he needs." "I want your opinion." She took a deep breath, organizing her thoughts. "Leo needs consistency, sir. He needs people who genuinely care about him, not just people who complete tasks. He needs to feel safe, loved, important. And he needs a father who is present, not just a provider." "And in practical terms?" "In practical terms, it might be better to have fewer people caring for him, but people who actually form bonds. Instead of nannies who stay for a short time, perhaps one permanent person who learns to know him, who truly cares. Would you be willing to be that person?" The question completely surprised Sarah. She looked at Christopher, then at Mrs. Martha, then back at him. "Sir, I don't have official training to be a nanny." "You have something much more important. You have heart, maternal intuition, and you know Leo better than anyone I've ever hired." "But I'm the cleaning lady." "You can be whatever I decide you will be in my home. The question is, Would you agree to officially take care of Leo? Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes. It was as if someone was offering her the chance to be a mother again, even if not to her own daughter. Mr. Christopher, I would care for Leo with all the love in the world, but what? What if it doesn't work out? What if I get too attached and then, what if I lose him too, like I lost Lily? The vulnerability in Sarah's voice touched Christopher deeply. She wasn't just considering a job. She was considering opening her heart again to love a child who could be taken from her. Sarah, if you accept, it won't be just as a nanny. It will be like family. Leo already loves you, that's evident, and I'm realizing you could teach me a lot about how to be a father. Mrs. Martha coughed loudly. Mr. Christopher, if I may, I think you're making a very impulsive decision. Hiring staff requires more reflection, checking references, analyzing qualifications. Martha, in 3 years of watching Sarah work in this house, do you have any complaints about her character, her dedication, her honesty? Well, no, but do you have any doubts about her ability to care for Leo after what you saw today? No, but that doesn't mean... Then what exactly is your objection? Martha realized she was in a delicate position. Her objections were based on class prejudice and professional jealousy, not rational arguments. Sir, it's just that changing the household structure so drastically... The household structure has already changed, Martha. Today showed me that the structure we had wasn't working. Christopher turned back to Sarah, who was still holding Leo, now sleepy after his meal. Sarah, you don't have to answer now. Think it over calmly, but know that if you accept, you would have total autonomy to care for Leo in the way you think best. No interference, no criticism, no pressure. And my work as a cleaning lady. We would hire another person for the cleaning. Your work would be exclusively caring for Leo. And the salary? It would be equivalent to that of an experienced professional nanny. In fact, it would be more because you would be taking on a much greater responsibility. Sarah gently rocked Leo, who was almost asleep again. The child nestled against her, completely relaxed and trusting. Can I have a few days to think? Of course, but while you think, I'd like you to stay here today taking care of him. So you can see how you feel, and so I can see how everything works. And the new nanny who was supposed to arrive tomorrow? I'll cancel, at least until you decide. Mrs. Martha shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Christopher, what if she decides not to accept? We'll be left with no one to care for Leo. Martha, if she doesn't accept, we'll keep looking for someone suitable. But I won't accept just anyone anymore just because they have a diploma or references on paper. I want someone who genuinely cares about my son. And how will you determine that? The same way I determined it today with Sarah. By observing how Leo reacts, how the person treats him, if there's genuine affection or just a fulfillment of duty. Leo murmured something in his sleep, and Sarah automatically began to rock him more slowly, adjusting his position so he'd be more comfortable. The movement was so natural, so instinctive, that she didn't even realize she was doing it. I'll take him to his room, she said softly. I'll come with you. Christopher stood up. I want to learn how you put him to sleep too. They went upstairs together, leaving Mrs. Martha alone in the kitchen. The housekeeper stood there for several minutes, processing everything that had happened. In a few hours, the entire dynamic of the house had changed, and she felt completely lost. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. In Leo's room, Sarah showed Christopher how to change the diaper properly, how to put on the pajamas without waking the child, how to adjust the room temperature. He likes to sleep with a little light, she explained, adjusting the blind. Pitch dark makes him restless. How do you know that? By observing, sir. Over these 3 years, whenever I was cleaning near his room, I noticed he slept better when there was a sliver of light. And did the nannies know this? I mentioned it to some, others not. They didn't always ask for my opinion about Leo's habits. Christopher watched as she organized the room, tidying the toys, checking that everything was in order for when Leo woke up. Every movement of hers demonstrated an intimate knowledge of the child's likes and needs. "Sarah, may I ask you something?" "Of course, sir." "If you accept to care for Leo, what would your ideal routine with him be like?" She stopped arranging the toys and thought for a moment. "Well, sir, I think Leo needs a routine, but not too rigid. He needs to know what to expect, but also have the flexibility to be a child." "How so?" "For example, meal times, yes, but if he's not hungry exactly on time, wait a little. Bath time, yes, but if he's playing and happy, let him play a few more minutes." "And activities?" "Leo is very intelligent, sir. He likes music, stories, playing with water. He needs stimulation, but he also needs time to just be a child, to be on the floor, to explore, to get a little dirty." "Did the nannies let him get dirty?" "Not much. Most were very concerned with keeping him always clean and tidy. But children learn by getting dirty, exploring, touching everything." "What about education?" "Sir, Leo is still very young for formal education, but he can already learn a lot through play. Colors, shapes, sounds, textures, everything can be a learning experience at this age as long as it's fun." Christopher was impressed with the depth of Sarah's reflections on child development. It was evident she had thought a lot about it, probably applying in practice everything she had learned theoretically in her interrupted pedagogy course. "Would you like to go back to studying? Finish college?" "I dream of that, sir, but I don't have the financial means or the time." "What if that were part of the arrangement? What if I paid for your studies so you could become even more qualified to take care of Leo?" Sarah looked at him in surprise. "Mr. Christopher, that would be... I don't even know what to say." "Say you'll think about it, along with everything else." Leo stirred in his crib, murmuring something, and Sarah immediately moved closer, humming softly until he calmed down again. "Does he have nightmares sometimes?" Christopher asked. "Sometimes, sir. Usually when he's been very agitated during the day, or when there have been a lot of changes. Children process emotions through their dreams." "And what do you do when he has nightmares?" "I stay close, hum softly, sometimes hold him until he calms down. The important thing is for him to know he's not alone." "Did the nannies do that?" "Some tried. Others thought it was too much coddling, that he should learn to calm himself down." "And you? What do you think?" "Sir, a 1.5-year-old child doesn't have the emotional capacity to calm himself down when he's scared. He needs adults for that. Leaving a child crying alone in the dark only teaches him that he can't count on anyone." Once again, Sarah's simple wisdom contrasted with the rigid theories many professional nannies followed. Christopher was beginning to realize that caring for children was more art than science, more love than technique. They went back down to the kitchen, where they found Mrs. Martha obsessively cleaning an already clean countertop. It was evident she was nervous and trying to keep busy. "How did it go?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Leo went to sleep peacefully," Christopher replied. "Martha, I need to talk with you." "Of course, sir." "Sarah, could you give us a few minutes?" "Of course, sir. I'll clean the living room." After she left, Christopher turned to the housekeeper. "Martha, I need to be direct with you. What happened today showed me there are serious problems in how this house is being run." "Sir, I accept there were failures today, but it's not just today's failures, Martha. It's a broader issue. You knew Leo was suffering from the constant nanny changes, and you didn't tell me. You knew Sarah was filling the gaps left by the nannies, and you treated that as a problem instead of a solution." "Sir, I was trying to maintain order. Order for order's sake is no good if it isn't benefiting the people in the house. And it clearly wasn't benefiting Leo." Martha lowered her head. "Mr. Christopher, perhaps I've been too rigid, but I've always tried to do my best for the family." "I know, Martha, and that's why I'm talking to you instead of simply firing you." The word firing made the housekeeper pale. "Sir, please give me a chance to improve. That's what I'm doing. But we'll need to change some things. If Sarah agrees to care for Leo, you'll need to work in collaboration with her, not in competition." "I can do that." "Are you sure? Because today I saw a lot of jealousy and prejudice on your part towards her." Martha fell silent. knowing she couldn't deny the obvious. Martha, Sarah is a good, dedicated, intelligent person. She lost her own daughter, but she channeled all her maternal capacity into helping Leo. Instead of seeing her as a threat, you should see her as an ally. Sir, I admit I may have felt a bit of discomfort. But I can change. Why did you feel discomfort? Martha hesitated, but realized honesty was her only chance to keep her job. Because she could do things I couldn't. Leo responded to her in a way he never responded to me, and that bruised my pride. Martha, everyone has different skills. You are excellent at organizing the house, keeping everything running perfectly. Sarah is excellent with children. Why not work together, using each other's strengths? You're right, sir. I can do this. And the prejudice? Let's not pretend there wasn't class prejudice in your attitudes today. Sir, I grew up in a time when hierarchies were more rigid, but I recognize that's no excuse. Sarah deserves respect for who she is and what she does, not for her position. Exactly. And if she agrees to care for Leo, you will treat her as a colleague on the same level, not as a subordinate. Understood, sir. Christopher nodded. Well, let's see how things develop. For now, I want you to think about how you can best support this possible transition. Sir, may I ask a question? Of course. If Sarah accepts, what will happen to me? Will my role change? Your role will continue to be managing the house, but perhaps with a little less control over matters related to Leo and a little more collaboration with whoever is caring for him. And if I make other mistakes. Martha, everyone makes mistakes. The problem isn't the mistakes themselves, it's how we react to them. Today you tried to defend yourself and blame others, instead of admitting and learning. That needs to change. I understand, sir. And, may I say I admire the decision you're making. How so? You could simply hire another expensive nanny and continue delegating the responsibility, but you're choosing to get more involved, to learn more about your son. That's nice to see. Christopher was surprised by the comment. Thank you, Martha. I hope you're right, and that I can be a better father. You will, sir, and Sarah can help a lot with that. They returned to the living room, where they found Sarah organizing Leo's toys which were scattered about. She had created little themed corners, one for books, one for stacking toys, one for simple musical instruments. What are you doing? Christopher asked. Organizing the toys so Leo can better choose what he wants to play with, she explained. When everything is mixed together, children get confused and can't focus on any activity. Does that make a difference? It makes a big difference, sir. Young children concentrate better when the options are clear and organized. Christopher observed her work. It was evident there was pedagogical thought behind each choice, each arrangement. Sarah, where did you learn about organizing spaces for children? In my pedagogy program at State University, sir. And also by observing children. They themselves show what they like and what they need if we pay attention. And has Leo shown he likes this organization? Yes, sir. In recent months, whenever I arranged the toys like this while cleaning, he played in a more focused and calm way. Mrs. Martha approached. Sarah, can I help with anything? The question surprised Sarah, who wasn't used to offers of help from the housekeeper. Thank you, Mrs. Martha. If you like, you can help me organize Leo's little books. They were all crumpled in the basket. The two women worked side by side for a few minutes in silence. It was a hesitant beginning of collaboration, but it was a beginning. Sarah, Martha said quietly, you really understand children. Thank you, Mrs. Martha. And I apologize if I've ever treated you inappropriately. I recognize that you've always genuinely cared for Leo. Sarah stopped organizing the books and looked at the housekeeper. Mrs. Martha, we all just want what's best for Leo. If we work together, it will be better for him. That's true, and I would like to learn some of the things you know about children, if you don't mind teaching. Of course I don't mind. It would be a pleasure. Christopher watched the scene with satisfaction. Perhaps there was hope that the two women could work in harmony for Leo's benefit. A soft cry came from the upstairs room, and Sarah immediately stopped what she was doing. He must be waking up. When he wakes from his afternoon nap, he's usually thirsty. May I come with you? Christopher asked. "Of course, sir." They went upstairs together and found Leo stretching in his crib, still drowsy but smiling. Upon seeing his father and Sarah, he stretched his little arms out to both of them as if wanting a group hug. "Hi, my love," Sarah said sweetly, picking him up. "Did you sleep well?" Leo babbled something that sounded like Sarah, his version of her name. "Mr. Christopher, he's trying to say my name," she said, moved. "And he's almost getting it. Leo, say Dada again." "Dada," Leo said clearly, smiling at his father. "Now say Sarah." "Sarah," Leo repeated, clapping his little hands. It was a simple moment, but profoundly touching. For the first time, Christopher felt he was truly connected with his son, and that Leo was happy and safe. "He must be thirsty," Sarah observed. "Leo always wakes up thirsty from his naps." "How do you give him water?" "With a sippy cup, sir. He's already learning to drink by himself." They went down to the kitchen where Sarah prepared a sippy cup with warm water. Leo drank eagerly, then started to play, trying to grab the cup from her hands. "Does he want to hold it himself?" Christopher asked. "He does, sir. Leo is at the age where he wants to do everything himself. It's important to let him try, even if he makes a mess." "Did the nannies let him?" "Not always. Many preferred to do everything for him to avoid a mess." "And is that bad?" "It's bad because he doesn't learn independence. Children need to explore, try, make mistakes, and try again. That's how they develop confidence in themselves." Christopher watched Leo trying to drink by himself, spilling a little water, but persisting until he succeeded. The joy on the child's face when he managed to drink without help was undeniable. "He gets proud when he can do things by himself," Christopher remarked. "Very proud, sir, and that is fundamental for the development of his self-esteem." Mrs. Martha entered the kitchen at that moment, carrying some documents. "Mr. Christopher, the monthly household expense report has arrived. You can leave it on the office desk, Martha. I'll look at it later. And the weekly shopping list? You can leave that there too. Sir, may I suggest we include more child-appropriate foods on the list, in case Sarah agrees to care for Leo?" The suggestion showed that Martha was genuinely trying to collaborate with the new situation. "Good idea," Christopher agreed. "Sarah, what kind of food would be best for Leo? Fresh fruit, vegetables for making homemade purees, chicken, fish, natural things without too much sodium or sugar. And does he like homemade food?" "He loves it, sir. Much more than the store-bought purees." "Why did the nannies give him store-bought purees then?" "Because it's more convenient, sir, but it's not necessarily better for the child. Sarah, would you make the purees at home?" "Of course, sir, it's more work, but it's more nutritious and flavorful." "And would you have time for that?" "Sir, if my job is exclusively to care for Leo, I would have time to do everything as well as possible. Homemade food, educational activities, outdoor play, everything." The prospect Sarah painted was tempting. Christopher was imagining Leo growing up in a more loving environment, more attentive to his individual needs. "Sarah, have you started thinking about my proposal?" "I've been thinking about it a lot, Mr. Christopher. It's an enormous responsibility and an incredible opportunity." "And what's weighing most on your decision?" "Sir, honestly, the fear of getting too attached and then suffering again. When I lost Lily, I thought I would never be able to recover. If I accept caring for Leo, I will love him as if he were my own child. And if something goes wrong—" "Sarah, what could possibly go wrong?" "I don't know, sir. You could get married again. Your new wife might not like me. You could change your mind, think I'm not doing a good job. 1,000 things could happen that would take me away from Leo, and I don't know if I could bear losing another child I love." Sarah's vulnerability touched Christopher deeply. She wasn't just considering a job. She was considering opening her wounded heart to love again. "Sarah, I can't promise that nothing will ever change, but I can promise that if you accept, you'll be a real part of our family, and families don't break apart over small things. And if you get married again, if I ever marry again, it will be to someone who understands that Leo already has important people in his life, and that those people are part of the package." "Do you really mean that?" "Sarah, have you seen how Leo reacts to me when you're around? He's calmer, happier. That's no coincidence. You bring him peace and consequently to me too." Leo, who was playing on the floor with some toys, started to fuss a little. Sarah immediately knelt down beside him. "What is it, sweetheart? Are you tired?" She picked him up, and he immediately calmed down, snuggling into her neck. "He likes your scent," Christopher observed. "Children are soothed by familiar scents, sir. Leo already associates me with safety and affection." "And that happened naturally over time?" "Yes, sir, it wasn't forced or planned. It happened gradually whenever I needed to help with him." "Sarah, can I tell you something?" "Of course, sir." "I've never seen Leo as calm and happy as he is today. In a year and a half of life, he's never seemed so at home, so secure. Perhaps it's because he feels he has the adult's full attention today, that he's not just another task to be completed. And how do I make him feel like this all the time? Mr. Harrington, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present when you're with him. Put away your phone, forget about work for a few minutes. Really pay attention to what he's trying to communicate." Is it really that simple? It's simple, but it's not easy. It requires mental discipline, sir. It requires choosing to be truly there. Christopher reflected on that. How many times had he been physically present with Leo but mentally distant, thinking about meetings, contracts, company problems? "Sarah, if you agree to care for Leo, would you help me be a better father too?" "Sir, you're already a good father. You just need to trust your instincts more and spend more quality time with him. But would you teach me practical things? How to give a bath, how to put him to sleep, how to interpret the different types of crying?" "Of course, sir. It would be an honor to help with that." Leo started to squirm in Sarah's arms, wanting to get down. She placed him on the floor, where he immediately crawled over to Christopher and tried to climb up his father's leg. "He wants to play with you," Sarah observed. "How do you know?" "By his movements, his expression. He's energized, curious, wanting interaction." Christopher knelt down and picked Leo up, lifting him into the air. The child giggled with joy, and Christopher smiled genuinely for the first time in a long while. "Hiya, Daddy," Leo babbled. "Did he say, hiya?" Christopher asked, surprised. "He did, sir. Leo is very smart. He's developing speech quickly." "Did the nannies comment on his development?" "Some did, others didn't pay much attention, but he's quite advanced for his age." "In what way?" "In speech, motor coordination, the ability to understand simple commands. Leo is a very bright child." Christopher continued playing with his son, tossing him up and catching him, while Leo laughed louder and louder. It was as if the two were discovering each other for the first time. "Mr. Christopher," Mrs. Martha gently interrupted, "may I prepare a snack for Leo? It's almost time for his afternoon snack." "You may, Martha. Thank you for remembering." The housekeeper headed to the kitchen, and Sarah took the opportunity to speak more softly with Christopher. "Sir, may I say something?" "Of course." "You're playing with Leo in a way I've never seen before. He's loving it. Is that true?" "Very true. Look at the joy on his face." Christopher looked at Leo, who was beaming, clapping his little hands and asking for more play. It was a moment of pure shared happiness. "Sarah, I think I've already made my decision about the proposal I made to you." "Sir, I don't want you to think about it for a long time anymore. I want you to accept it. Leo needs you, and so do I." "Mr. Christopher." "Sarah, today you showed me that I was missing the best moments of my son's life by always being worried about other things. You showed me that he is an incredible, joyful, intelligent child, and you showed me that I can be a better father. You always had the potential to be a wonderful father. But I needed someone to show me how. Do you accept?" Sarah looked at Leo, who was trying to give slobbery kisses on his father's face, and felt her heart warm. "I accept, Mr. Christopher. I accept taking care of Leo as if he were my own son. And do you accept helping me be a better father?" "I accept that too." "And do you accept me paying for your studies so you can finish your pedagogy degree at the State University?" "Sir, that's too generous." "It's not generosity, Sarah. It's an investment. The better educated you are, the better it will be for Leo. And who knows, one day you might even open a little school for other children too." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. It was as if all her interrupted dreams were being offered back to her. Mr. Christopher, you have no idea what this means to me. It means you'll have the chance to be a mother again, even if not biologically, and Leo will have the mother he deserves. Leo chose that moment to speak clearly. Mommy Sarah. Both adults fell silent, moved. The child had made the connection on his own, recognizing Sarah as a maternal figure. He called me Mommy, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down. And he's right to do so, Christopher said, also emotional. Starting today, you are his mommy. Mrs. Martha returned from the kitchen with Leo's snack and stopped at the door upon seeing the scene. Christopher and Sarah crying with emotion. Leo drooling happily in his father's lap, a family atmosphere she had never witnessed in that house. Sorry to interrupt, she said softly, but the snack is ready. Thank you, Martha, Christopher said, wiping his eyes. Sarah has accepted our proposal. That's wonderful, Martha said, and for the first time she sounded genuinely happy with the news. Leo will be very well cared for. Mrs. Martha, Sarah said, I hope we can work well together. I hope so too, and I'd like to learn a few things from you about children, if you don't mind. Of course not. It will be great to have a home where everyone collaborates for Leo's well-being. Christopher observed the interaction between the two women and felt a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. For the first time since the loss of his wife, he felt his house would truly become a home. Well, he said, placing Leo in the high chair, I think we have a lot to plan. Sarah, when can you officially start? Whenever you wish, Mr. Christopher. Starting tomorrow, then. And tonight, you stay for dinner with us so we can start establishing the new routines. Sir, I need to let my household know. Of course, call whoever you need to. And Martha, cancel the nanny who was arriving tomorrow. Already cancelled, sir. I called as soon as you said Sarah had accepted. Perfect. So we are officially beginning a new phase. Leo clapped as if he understood something important had happened, making everyone laugh. Mr. Harrington, Sarah said, may I make a suggestion? Always. How about we all have dinner together tonight? You, me, Mrs. Martha, and Leo, like a family. You consider Martha part of the family too? Of course, sir. She has taken care of this house for 10 years. She has known you and Leo for a long time. She is an important part of this family. Martha was visibly moved by the recognition. During all these years, she had always felt more like an employee than part of the family. It would be an honor to have dinner with you, she said. Then it's decided, Christopher declared. Our first dinner as a new family. Leo banged on his high-chair tray as if approving the decision, making everyone laugh again. While Sarah helped Leo with his afternoon snack, Christopher reflected on how a single day had changed everything. In the morning, he was an absent father with a child neglected by inattentive staff. Now he felt he was on the path to building a real family, based on love, care, and genuine presence. Sarah, he said, I have one last question. Go ahead, sir. Do you think you could ever call me just Christopher instead of Mr. Harrington? If we're going to be a family, perhaps we can be less formal, Sarah smiled. I think I'll need some time to get used to it. It's been 3 years calling you Mr. Harrington. No rush, whenever you feel comfortable. And you, Christopher, can call me just Sarah too, without the formal you. Deal, Sarah. Leo finished his snack and began to clap, clearly satisfied and happy. Sarah cleaned him carefully and lifted him from the high chair. He's got energy, she observed. How about we play a bit in the garden before dinner? In the garden? Christopher asked. Does Leo already play in the garden? He loves it, sir. Christopher. He likes to feel the grass, see the plants, breathe fresh air. Did the nannies take him to the garden? Rarely. Most thought it was too much work, or that he might get too dirty. And is getting dirty a problem? Not for children, Christopher. They learn by exploring, touching, experiencing. A little dirt doesn't hurt. Then let's go to the garden. They went out to the mansion's spacious garden. Leo immediately perked up upon seeing the green space, trying to wriggle free from Sarah's arms to explore. Can we put him on the ground? Christopher asked. Yes, we can. We'll just keep an eye on him so he doesn't eat dirt or leaves." Sarah placed Leo on the grass, and he immediately began to crawl, exploring everything with intense curiosity. He touched leaves, tried to grab flowers, laughed at feeling the texture of the grass on his little hands. "He seems like a different child out here," Christopher observed. "Children need contact with nature, Christopher. It's good for sensory and motor development. And indoors he's limited?" "Somewhat. No matter how many toys and activities we have, it doesn't replace the richness of stimuli that nature offers." Leo found a small stone and tried to put it in his mouth. Sarah quickly took it from his hand, offering a large, clean leaf instead. "Can he play with the leaf?" "Yes, he can. Leaves are safe, and he's at the age of exploring different textures." Christopher sat on the grass beside his son, watching as Leo investigated each element of the garden with fascination. It was like watching a little scientist making important discoveries. "Sarah, sit here with us." She sat down, forming a triangle around Leo. The child looked at both adults and smiled as if approving the arrangement. "He likes it when we are all together," Sarah observed. "How do you know?" "By his expression, by how he relaxes when everyone is present and attentive. Children feel safe when they sense that the important adults are united." "Important? Do you consider yourself an important person to him?" "Now I do, Christopher, and that's a responsibility I take very seriously." Leo crawled over to Christopher and tried to climb onto his father, clearly wanting to be held. Christopher picked him up and Leo immediately pointed to a large tree in the corner of the garden. "Tree," he said clearly. "He said tree," Christopher exclaimed, surprised. "Leo is in a vocabulary explosion phase," Sarah explained. "He learns new words every day." "And did the nannies encourage that?" "Some did, others didn't pay attention, but speech development needs constant stimulation." "How so?" "By talking to him, naming things, repeating words, reading stories. A child learns through imitation and repetition." "Did you do that with him?" "Whenever possible. When I was cleaning near him, I would say the names of things, tell simple little stories." "And is that why he's so advanced in speech?" "That could be one of the reasons. Leo is naturally intelligent, but he needs stimulation to develop his full potential." Christopher felt a pang of guilt. How many moments of his son's development had he missed by always being busy with other things? "Sarah, do you think I missed many important things in Leo's growth?" "Christopher, the past doesn't come back, but the future is in your hands. Leo still has a lot of growing to do. He'll learn so much. The important thing is to be present from now on. And will you help me not miss anything else?" "Yes, I will. We're going to create many beautiful memories together." Leo pointed to a bird that landed on a nearby tree. "Birdie," he said, excited. "Very good, Leo, it's a little bird." Sarah congratulated him. "Birdie fly," Leo continued, waving his little arms as if they were wings. Christopher was fascinated by his son's capacity for observation and communication. "He really is very smart." "Very. And affectionate too. Leo has a huge heart." As if to prove it, Leo leaned forward and gave his father a wet kiss on the cheek, then turned and did the same to Sarah. "Daddy good. Mommy Sarah good," he said, smiling. The two adults looked at each other, deeply moved. In just a few hours they had formed a family bond that seemed solid and true. "I think we should go inside," Sarah suggested. "It's starting to get cool, and Leo needs a bath before dinner." "Can I give him his bath today?" Christopher asked. "Of course, it'll be a new experience for both of you." They went back inside, where they found Mrs. Martha setting the table for dinner. "How was the walk in the garden?" she asked. "Leo learned 2 new words, tree and birdie," Christopher reported proudly. "How wonderful! He really is very clever." "Mrs. Martha," Sarah said, "after Leo goes to sleep, can we talk about the household routines, so I can better understand how I can help without disrupting your work?" "That would be great, Sarah. Thank you for thinking of that." Christopher observed the growing cordiality between the two women and felt hopeful. Maybe it really was possible to create a harmonious environment where everyone worked together for Leo's well-being. "Well, let's go give this bath," he said, picking Leo up. "Christopher, let me get clean clothes and towels for you," Sarah offered. "Thank you. And Sarah?" Yes? Thank you for everything, for taking care of Leo, for accepting our proposal, for showing me how to be a better father. Thank you, Christopher, for giving me the chance to be a mother again. Leo, in the middle of the conversation, babbled something that sounded like family, making everyone smile. I think he understands what's happening, Martha commented. Children are very sensitive to adults' energies, Sarah explained. Leo is sensing that everyone is happy and united, and that makes him feel safe and content. So let's keep this positive energy, Christopher declared. From now on, this house will be a place of love, collaboration, and joy. Amen, Martha murmured, smiling. And Leo will grow up knowing he is loved and important to all of us, Sarah added. Family, Leo repeated, more clearly this time, making everyone laugh and get emotional again. End of story. And you? What did you think of this story of transformation and love? Do you believe Sarah made the right decision by accepting to care for Leo? Share your opinion about this new family that has formed in the comments. Your participation is very important to us. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one.